It is Monday night. This is Nick coming at you with a Central Committee preview. Tonight I am headed to the Hilton in Costa Mesa for the Central Committee meeting. Before we get into that, I do want to make sure to do an honorable mention. Mike Spence, who was a absolute warrior for our movement, passed away last week. It's incredibly sad. Spence was a huge inspiration to me. I met him many times, but my strongest memory of him is back at the CRA convention. That's the California Republican Assembly convention that was held in Sacramento in 2010, I believe. It was an incredibly contentious event. There was literally people holding doors shut, trying to prevent delegates from entering the hall. And amongst all that chaos was Mike Spence in the back of the room with a big stack of paperwork. And he spent a whole lot of time there on his feet, fighting really hard against what he saw as people trying to take over that club and ultimately use their influence to make the party into something which he believed it should not. And as a young activist, I really looked up to him and his spirit and obviously his immense intelligence, and we are all worse off having lost him. So rest in peace, Mike Spence. Sorry to hear about that. So with that being done, tonight is Central Committee. Tonight at Central Committee, it will be a pretty run-of-the-mill meeting as far as we can tell. This is pretty standard for Central Committee meetings. There was originally an announcement sent out that there would be a candidate forum, which generally means that we're not going to be voting to endorse anyone that night, but that there will be somebody showing up, well, more than one somebody, two somebodies who are showing up in the hopes of getting the endorsement eventually for a position. This position was for Assembly in the 68th Assembly District, where I previously lived and served as a Central Committee member or alternate Central Committee member. The Assemblyman there is Dr. Stephen Choi, who, as far as I can tell, has done a great job. I've not followed him super closely. I wasn't a supporter of him during the election, but all in all, I think he's doing a decent job. I'm curious to hear if anyone has any thoughts otherwise. But another young man, Benjamin Yu, I believe is how you pronounce his name. I'm sorry if I'm getting that wrong. Benjamin is apparently a friend of Nikki Motazadi. Nikki is a city council member in Lake Forest who I know and I did support, at least from my distance outside of Lake Forest. Lake Forest is my home city. I've been very concerned about what's happened in the city council there, and it was a great big fresh air breath to have her get in there in the council as a young person, as a female person, as a solid conservative person. Happy to have her, happy to see what's happened in Lake Forest politics. I don't know who Benjamin is. The little I know of him is that he was featured in a video in which he got in sort of a physical altercation with an activist from the other side of things in Lake Forest, which doesn't bode well. And ultimately, I don't understand why he would be running against Dr. Choi. Like I said, maybe he knows something I don't. Maybe he's followed Dr. Choi a little bit more closely in his votes in the assembly, but unless he's got a really convincing reason as to why he wants to primary a sitting Republican assembly member, I won't be supporting him. As many people know, I'm happy to support primary challenges to Republicans who are not good. And that's not what I think we have right now in Stephen Choi. I believe that he should be endorsed and continue on in his seat. Beyond that, we are going to see apparently a list of other endorsements. We are now officially less than a year out from the March primary in 2020, and there are a list of candidates and sitting representatives, if you will, who are hoping to get endorsements tonight. None of them are particularly exciting to me. Some of them I would absolutely not support. Ling Ling Chang, not interested in supporting her in any way. And then Philip Chen, I don't know much about him. I'm not inclined to support him, but one way or the other, I don't think that it's really a big deal there. John Morlock, who is our state senator, who's been a big disappointment for me, especially in the primary challenge of Dana Rohrabacher, and I'll have a video here eventually in which I'll go over what happened in the Dana Rohrabacher race. But John Morlock chose to support the former chairman of the Orange County Republican Party, Scott Baugh, who is absolutely the worst. I mean, unqualified, the worst possible candidate to sit down and have him try to primary Dana Rohrabacher should have been and was mostly viewed as a huge mistake. And I'm hoping that anyone who supported him is going to be learning their lesson here really quickly. I will not be supporting John Moorlach based on that horrendous decision. And then a number of other people who will all mostly be endorsed. Most of these people will be endorsed because they are the only candidate in the race. I don't think that we should be, as a Republican Party of Orange County, endorsing people simply because they happen to identify as a Republican. I think the Republican Party should be spending a lot more time vetting these candidates, finding out what they actually believe, and only endorsing people who strongly support the platform and positions that Republicans in Orange County hold. And on top of that, I guess that Carl DeMaio is going to be coming out and speaking to us about something. Not a huge Carl fan. I really wish that he and some of the other people here had gotten together early on and made the gas tax repeal effort into something that would have been viable. And other than that, I've not been very impressed with him on anything else that he's done other than his ability to stay relevant when there's really not much of a reason for him to be relevant. And this all kind of takes me back to my first idea, my first reform that I would like to implement when I do get elected to Central Committee here in the 73rd Assembly District in the upcoming primary election, which is recorded votes. I believe very strongly that every single vote that happens on the floor of that Central Committee should be recorded. And by recorded, I mean that the representatives there, the Central Committee members, don't vote simply as a voice vote. They actually vote in a form that will have their name, and it will say there, Nick Wilson voted this way or that way for the endorsement of this candidate, the endorsement of this Assembly bill or Senate bill, or whatever else we decide to vote on. The whole point of that would be so that in the future, when other people decide to run, when I decide to run again, and when the citizens of their assembly districts get to decide who they're going to be voting for, they'll have a record to reference, and they'll be voting based on the record of that person's voting. Currently, most of this voting is done by voice vote. The chairman will say, this is what we're going to vote on. There'll be some debate, there'll be some speeches, and at the end of the day, everybody either votes yay or nay out loud. And they say, yes, that either passed or that didn't pass. And maybe in the notes of, or the minutes of the meeting, they may say in there, so-and-so voted against this or for this, or, depending what the minority vote is. But there's no detailed record of that, and it's not researchable by any voter, which I think is terrible. I believe that we need to have transparency. We need to have accountability. The people who are elected to this body are elected and need to be held accountable for their votes. So I will be going into a little bit more detail on some of my other ideas moving forward here. If anything exciting happens or anything changes tonight after Central Committee, I will be following this video up, but most likely I anticipate not much to report. That will do it for me for today. Remember, contact me if you know people in California 73rd Assembly District who might be interested in voting for me. I would love to meet them. I'd love to sit down with them and make sure that we all align, that we can see eye to eye, and that I can get some support growing here. I can't do this without the support of citizens like yourselves. Reach out to me. Thanks so much. Have a great night.